Hi everyone, so in today's video I will be doing a salt buildup check on some plants, specifically semi-hydro plants and rockwool plants. So there are two reasons why I really want to do this. The first reason being I've heard that rockwool does hold a lot of salts, so I want to see how much it has held throughout the past year. And also earlier this year, I went very high on the dose of fertilizer, but I've completely stopped fertilizer in the past few weeks. So I like to see what impact that has, if there's any impact at all. So we'll be testing 4 plants, two that are old acquisitions and two that are new acquisitions. I like to see if there's a difference between the old plants and the new plants in terms of salt buildup. I suspect there will be a difference, but we may be surprised, so that's why I like to try both. Before I start, I will just quickly go through each plant and when I repotted them. This is my Polycycnis barbata. It was repotted in Rockwool at the end of March. This is actually my first plant that was repotted in Rockwool. Although it is not strictly Rockwool, it's Rockwool and some leca beads as well. This is my Dendrobium carineferum. This has also been repotted end of March, but in 2016. So I had this guy for about 2 years. This is my Phalaenopsis amboinensis. It was repotted last year, September. This is my Dendrobium scabrilingue, and it was also repotted September last year. So this is the plan. I'm going to soak all these in distilled water for about an hour, and then after an hour I will measure the TDS readings of the distilled water. Okay, so these guys are set up and ready to go. I had some issues with these guys leaking, but we'll check in about an hour and see what the TDS meter reads on the water. Okay, so it's been about an hour. I'm going to check the new guys first, and then I'll check the older guys afterwards. We'll drain this into... this did leak a little bit, but it didn't leak too much, so I think that's acceptable. If anyone else who's doing semi-hydro wants to do this at home, just be aware that if you have ridges on your cup, you should use duct tape and make sure the duct tape is inside the ridges so it doesn't leak. It still may leak, just so that you guys are aware. Okay, so this is the distilled water, reading as 0.1 or 0.1 or 1, and then to 0, and in this water it is, let's do it this way, it's reading as 240 ppm. Okay, so I took out my Phalaenopsis amboinensis and now can measure the water here. So it's only reading 40 ppm. And now we're going to do the older plant. So this is the Dendrobium carineferum. Okay, and now we measure. This is measuring at 153 ppm. Last but not least, the Polycycnis barbata water. So it's reading only 20 ppm. Okay, so that was a little bit surprising. I wasn't expecting the newer plants to have higher ppms compared to the older plants. So I guess the question now is, what can we conclude? With regards to the Rockwool, I think there are two possible scenarios. One scenario could be the Rockwool just doesn't impart the salts when you soak it in distilled water. It's possible that the salt stayed within the Rockwool and therefore you'd get a lower reading in the distilled water. The second scenario is the Rockwool just doesn't hold salts if you flush it enough. I do think that both scenarios are possible, but it's hard to say. My personal thoughts are, as long as you flush it enough, it's going to be fine. It won't hold on to it too much, because my Polycycnis barbata is doing fairly well. It's not dying. Although I did have issues with a couple plants in Rockwool, I think overall the salt buildup on the Rockwool is not too bad, as long as it's being flushed regularly. As for the plants in semi-hydro, I suspect the story is the same. Possible reason why the older plant had a lower ppm is probably it had more opportunities to be flushed more often. I think another factor in the ppm reading is the amount of algae and other plant debris that's in the water. It's hard for me to say for sure because I have no way to know what exactly is in the water that was soaked. But then if it was the algae, then the older plant would have had a higher ppm, I feel, because an older plant would accumulate more algae. So on that end, I'm a little bit confused, but I think the story is similar to the Rockwool, just that it's been around longer and had more opportunities to be flushed. Therefore, the salt buildup is lower. Of course, I don't know for sure, and I've only tested 2 plants, so this is just an assumption based from what I think, but I guess that's my conclusion. So I guess the moral of the story, which everybody already knows, is that make sure you flush your plants often. That way you can avoid having salt buildup and avoid any of those issues related to that. I mean, everybody already knows that, but I thought, especially with regards to the Rockwool, because I've heard that it really does hold on to the salts, but I was surprised to see that the Polycycnis barbata had a low ppm. Although, like I said before, it's possible that it's just still holding on to it, but it's not imparting it into the water. Anyway, that's my video for today. I hope you found it useful. And yeah, thank you for watching and have a great day. See you next time. Bye.